Well, there are Super Bowl parties, and then let's face it, there are Super Bowl parties. And Michael Wilbon, of Pardon the Interruption, was attending arguably the most exclusive of them all. Michael, you didn't have to go far. You actually watched the game in the nation's capital at the White House yesterday with President Barack Obama. Just take us through what a day that was.
Well, I mean, it was like a Super Bowl party, like you said, Josh, like no other. And it was a very intimate gathering, even though the numbers is going to sound large. I think there were probably between 150 and 200 people. But it's not like President Obama was holed up in a corner with a bat phone being surrounded by, Secret Service and not interacting. He was, I think, in the column I wrote for ESPN.com that's up this morning, I compared him and Mrs. Obama to, a couple after their wedding reception or during their wedding reception, greeting their guests and being completely engaged the entire time. And the president had said during an interview with Bill O'Reilly earlier Sunday morning that he was going to be in the game. And he was. He's not a casual sports fan. He is a sports fan who could hold his own in any conversation anywhere about any sport. And he was into the game the later it got. So it was, it's tough to do that, though, because you got so many things going on in conversations. A lot of Chicago people who want to talk about some other things like Derrick Rose and Jay Cutler. But ultimately, people got focused into the game.
And perhaps Rahm Emanuel. I'm just taking a guess here. But so you get there, you said 5:30. So obviously you're still in the pregame. Once kickoff started, does the place fall into a hush as you're actually watching the game?
Not really. There's never a hush. I mean, one of the reasons I had never been to a Super Bowl party, Josh, ever in my life. I'm one of those people who watches in solitude, and I've covered 20 of them. I've been to like 25 in a row now. And one reason I never go to Super Bowl parties is I want to see the game. So even now that I'm on ABC during the basketball show on Sundays, I rush to a hotel and watch by myself. And so it's difficult. I mean, you've got things going on, people who are just casually interested. There are varying degrees of interest in the actual game. So no, there's no hush. A lot of people didn't even know that Christina Aguilera sort of goofed.
Oh boy.
The lyrics. I mean, I sort of thought she did, but you never really are into it because let's face it, how many times do you get to sit and sort of watch a game with the president? So if you've got that opportunity, you're not as locked in as you would be by yourself.
Was he as locked in on the commercials?
No, none of us saw any of the commercials, and that was the time to visit in which he and Mrs. Obama went literally from table to table to greet their guests and to talk to their guests. And the rest of us, no, we talked to each other. And no, the only commercial I paid any attention to, and I hate the whole buzz over the commercials anyway, because again, I've been at so many games, I'm watching the game, and I think the commercials are completely overhyped. But the M&M commercial for Chrysler in Detroit was a stunning commercial to me. And that it was riveting, and the rest of it I just always consider junk and don't watch them. And thankfully, neither did the president.
Yeah, and you referred, of course, to the Chrysler commercial, the homage to Detroit. It was remarkable.
Brilliant.
I wonder,
commercial.
You mentioned he's into the game, and yet there is historic upheaval happening in Egypt. Was there any sense of the president being kept abreast of world affairs while the game was being played? I couldn't keep him abreast, and neither could Kornheiser. And neither could the guests that were sitting around. I don't know that Mark Anthony and Jennifer Lopez had any information coming from Cairo either. I mean, he was with his guests, and he said during the interview, earlier in the morning, that he was going to pay attention to the game. And one of the things that we know skillful politicians can do is compartmentalize. And yes, the world can be in upheaval totally all around them, and they have to they do this thing hundreds of times a year where their attention is divided, and they go back to that, and we're not always aware of it. He could have been getting briefs, I have no idea. But he seemed very in the moment with his guests and having a great time. And I'm sure when 10:30 came and those of us scrambled out to go home, he went back to work. So, but no, in the time that he was there, he was there. Well, and so did you. And again, you mentioned it. There's a column on the .com. Very quickly, Michael, President Obama, obviously his Bears taken out, well, your Bears taken out by the Packers. Was there any sense about what team he was rooting for?
No, there wasn't. I remember, he appointed Dan Rooney, as the ambassador to Ireland.
Yes.
So you've got some ties with the Steelers. Also, the former governor of Wisconsin was in attendance. So no, the president was not showing his hand. There was discussion at a couple of tables full of Chicagoans, and I was there, that could we root for the Packers? Is that allowable? For we pretty much hate the cheeseheads. So could we do that? And some were, because they said, wait a minute, the Bears lost to the Packers. We need to root for the Packers. And I couldn't bring myself to that as much as I like a lot of the Packers individually.
All right. Oh, boy, I tell you, on this, the most secular of our high holy days in the nation, political correctness, the rule of the day.